All right, we're back again talking New York Jets football on Inside Ourlads NFL Draft. The New York Jets. Been a while. Last time we talked New York Jets football was with Ryan Dunleavy, the New York Post. This was a few weeks ago, but Jan Levine has not been with us for a while. Jan, this is a good time to return because free agency is underway, well underway. The Jets have gone through phase one in pretty cool style. There's still a long way to go, but so far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, the day started out very slow. The calls of is Joe Douglas awake? Should somebody put a mirror under Joe Douglas's nose to make sure he's still breathing? All came out, and then all of a sudden that evening, Monday night, it was boom, 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 pretty much in rapid succession. Three really good signings. Since then they've really only added a special teamer who's supposed to be really good on special teams. Think Matthew Slayton a little bit for the Patriots type player. But they haven't really been overly aggressive in terms of since then. Clearly still have some needs which we'll go through, but no question a really nice start of filling some holes on day one of free agency. And, as there's still more to come because as of right now, the Jets have the most cap room in the league. And even if you factor in what they need to do with their free agents, they're still going to have, enough what they do within the draft, they're still going to have more than enough room in free agency to add at least a couple more players.
Yeah, I think when you just take a look at it, there's everything looks really nice. Carl Lawson, I mean, the players that they picked up were like not the top, but they were that next level. They were also young. They were also at the point in their careers, and I'm talking about the top three Davis, the two Davises and Lawson, of course, is only four, but especially Corey Davis and Carl Lawson, that if all goes well, now that they have changed teams, they're pros, they've been through the wars, it's going to be up to Robert Saleh and his coaching staff to get the most out of these guys. And if they can do that, then the Jets might have hit some home runs here because these guys, the players the Jets just signed, they've got a lot of talent.
Absolutely. Corey Davis, 5th overall pick, one before Jamal Adams. As you mentioned, young. So I think all three of them are around 26, 27. All of them have material up. So you're not signing guys in their 30s that you have concerns about. But Davis, nice number 2, or opposite Mims, maybe a 2-3, depending on how you use Mims, depending on what they do with Jamison Crowder and what they do in the draft. I did one
right
guy
now,
one
it's a really good 3 because you have Davis and Mims on the outside, and you got Crowder in the slot. So you need one more guy, though.
Right, and the guy I would have loved to add was Curtis Samuel, who went this evening to Washington for 3 years, $34.5 million. He's a guy. If you watched last year, Carolina used him as running back at times. They used him out of the backfields. Got a lot of speed.
He was awesome last year.
Got a lot of versatility. 334.5 is reasonable. That would have been a deal I would have loved Douglas to jump on top of, but they got Davis at a reasonable price. Another big receiver to go with Mims also. As you mentioned, Lawson shut out a little bit early on in a pass rusher, but the Jets finally got a guy who's coming off the edge. Had a great first year. Not a particularly great year, but he had a ton of quarterback pressures last year. Yep. You look at him and Williams on the outside rushing the passer, or Williams inside periodically, really lengthens their defense. And then the other Davis is a guy who's got tremendous speed from the outside. A guy, though, we talked about depending 3-4-4-3, use him at outside linebacker. Some talk about what they're going to do with C.J. Mosley. There's some interest in the marketplace. I don't know if the Jets are going to move him now, especially now that they've added Davis. But they've added 3 guys who we said are young, who are quick, who are maneuverable, who have really, I don't know if I'll use the word tremendous, but really good upside. And obviously the 4th guy they added was a special teamer who clearly we saw last year. They need help in that regard. Clearly need some more help. There's definitely still a lot of work to do. The two pieces we talked about earlier was one, offensive line, and the 2 guys they wanted went off the board pretty early. Joe Thuney got a lot of money, though, really 2 years guaranteed to go to Kansas City. And it's like, I can block for either Sam Darnold or maybe Zach Wilson or maybe somebody else, or I can block for Patrick Mahomes. Well, you can kind of understand why he might have picked Mahomes for the money, right? And the other offensive lineman they missed out on, that's, the center, Lindsey, who I thought would have been a good addition because they could have moved their current center inside where he could play, but they opted not to go that route. So they definitely need to improve the offensive line still. We know that they need some help at cornerback. That's a material need. The 2 big guys. Yep. Shaquille Griffin is off the board. think he went to Jacksonville. The other big cornerback went off the board. He went to Washington for reasonable money. So, we talk a little about, is Salah going to have that San Francisco connection? And
It hasn't happened
Richard,
yet. It's
Richard,
coming.
but Richard Sherman's out there, and I know they've gone young, but adding Sherman would be a nice addition to help bolster the backfield, but also brings a veteran presence and a guy that knows the system to kind of mentor some of the younger guys. And the other piece we didn't talk about was they franchise tagged Marcus May,
Yep.
and hopefully that's a precursor to them signing him to a long-term deal, which you and I talked about 2 years ago. We said lock him up then. They didn't under old management, although Douglas was around, and now Mr. May is going to get paid, and rightfully so, given what they think the upside is.
Yeah, speaking of that, I was his agent, this Eric Burkhart guy, comes out on Twitter complaining that the Jets have so much money to spend under the salary cap, yet refuse to take care of their best player. These agents that go on Twitter, it's not a way to start negotiating. Man, if I'm Joe Douglas and I start talking to these guys and it gets around. I mean, sometimes there's a specific agent that you either get along with or you don't. And if I'm Joe Douglas, man, I am talking to this guy and say, look, if you want a good relationship with me, keep it off Twitter, okay? If not, then this is going to be the last time I'm going to negotiate with any player with you. I mean, it's just not the way to do business. It's immature. Yeah, I know what he's trying to do, but we went through it with Jamal. This is the wrong GM and the wrong team to be doing this. We went through this last year with Jamal Adams, and it doesn't work out. So I expect Marcus May, though, to get the money that he's looking for. So just relax.
Yeah, well, it's negotiating in the 2020s and negotiating in the 2000s, right? You air your look in the past. You used to air your grievances on TV, right? ESPN before the advent of social media. Now, with the advent of social media, that's the way you kind of gain and garner attention for yourself, be it on Twitter, be it on YouTube. Some people use Facebook, be it on TikTok, especially now. So there are multiple mediums to do it. That you can trust me. I mean, look at Trevor Bauer. Look what Bauer did in terms of Twitter and in YouTube in terms of building his brand with Rachel Luba, and did a great job. And he got a ton of money from the Dodgers, right? And he had a big offer from the Mets for 3 years. So clearly it worked. So look, I agree with you. I'm sure Douglas will have a private conversation with the guy. Douglas has been pretty above board for the most part in terms of his viewpoints and negotiating with guys. I'm hoping it comes to fruition. And look, if I'm going to lock up a guy also, the two guys we've talked about, get May signed, and honestly, get Quinnen Williams signed now while he may be relatively reasonable, because if he has another year like he did last year, that price tag is going to go up rather substantially.
Yeah, and a lot's going to depend, too, of course, with the whole Deshaun Watson thing. What's going on in the news right now, and I haven't had a whole lot of time to go through it, but to me, I haven't watched one report other than just some snippets, headlines. It just stinks. I mean, you're telling me that this isn't a setup? That this isn't somehow somewhere on Houston is planning this in the media, so everybody decides, no, we don't want to touch Deshaun Watson. It's just not good business, and Houston just sits there and, oh, good, Deshaun Watson's going to come back to us. That's the worst thing you can do, because that's going to backfire.
Yeah, I mean, look, hoping, first of all, we have to hope that it's not true. That's first and foremost. Secondly, timing is specious at best. Let's put it that way, right? You put out bad news about the guy. I mean, clearly, I think that the thing where there's smoke and fire is clearly in Seattle. Chicago is supposedly all in on trying to trade for Russell Wilson and then settle for Dalton. Look, I mean, whether or not the relationship with him and Pete Carroll is still good, I mean, I think the big fear as Jet fans that I see out there a lot is the Patriots, right? The Patriots went nutso in free agency by comparison. They've reinstituted the old double tight end type of system by signing Jonnu Smith and another tight end, right? They brought back Cam Newton, but they need to, look, smoke and fire when it comes to Belichick. It wouldn't surprise me if they go hard after Deshaun Watson. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
But the thing is the Jets and the Dolphins still, if they want Watson, those are the two teams that are going to be able to give Houston what they want. It's just that simple. The question is do the Jets and Dolphins want him that bad?
Right. Well, and I'm not giving Quinnen Williams to get him in any trade either.
And that could very well be the case. So,
right. And that's not what I'm giving. So,
and again, look, the way I look at it, is, and I've been saying this for months, whatever happens, I'm just gonna trust that Joe Douglas is doing the right thing. That's all. So I don't want to get rid of Quinn Williams either. I think he could be a superstar, but if they did trade Quinn Williams, that would lead me to believe that they didn't think he's going to be a superstar. No way that they would trade Quinn Williams as part of a multi first round package if they think Quinn Williams is going to be, this Hall of Fame type talent. I just don't see it. So I don't think he's going anywhere. And the way things look, it's all going to be about whether or not they want to hold on to Sam Darnold, use that second pick to possibly trade down if someone wants to go up against Zach Wilson, get even more draft capital in the first round, or trade Sam Darnold and go with Zach Wilson. Again, whatever they decide to do, I'll back Joe Douglas because Zach Wilson's the only guy I want. We've talked about that. Don't want Fields, don't want Lance. So if they get Wilson, I'm going to be okay. All right, let's go. We got a new quarterback. There you go. I still just get the feeling, and it's very small, but compared to the opposite, that Darnold just makes more sense because you can use all that extra capital to build even a better team around him. So if they go with Zach Wilson, man, they better be right. That's the thing. You better make sure he's going to be a superstar.
Well, I mean, the key is right. Is do you really truly believe he is a future number one quarterback in the NFL? Right. If you're going to take any quarterback, you're going to have to make that decision. But especially at number two, with an incumbent there, you need to make sure you're making the right move. Granted, it saves you a lot of cap room because Darnold with his fifth-year option is about $18 million. Right. So you're saving a good portion of that by having a guy on his first year that you can use elsewhere. The problem is you've precluded yourself now from making other deals, and the marketplace for Darnold to a certain extent might be drying up based upon other moves that are taking place, depending on what happens. I don't know if Chicago's going after him. I don't know if Washington would go after him. Both of them have signed veteran quarterbacks. Granted, Chicago now has um, Washington has Fitzpatrick. Chicago has Dalton. Not that
Yeah, there
either
were
one of them
teams
are
out there.
world
I mean,
beaters,
you look at
but
San
they're
Francisco,
if
Carolina.
they
There were
got
still teams
if
that
they're
need
ready
quarterbacks.
Garoppolo, right? Carolina. Well, Carolina's got Bridgewater still.
Yeah, but
The
they're
Saints
not
have
sold.
the
On
Saints have
Bridgewater's there. They're lucky if he's there for one more year. He's not their guy.
right. Taysom Hill and Winston. I mean, they signed Taysom Hill to a pretty big contract, so it looks like they're believing in him in New Orleans. Now, whether or not that proves to be accurate and the right move still
Well,
remains
what
to
do you
be
want to see
seen. But
happen? You want Sam Darnold to get another year and use that pick for capital, or do you want Zach Wilson?
it's the betwixt and between you've had, right? I mean, first of all, the whispers and rumors are is that the around the NFL that Darnold's value may not be as high as it's perceived by others outside the NFL, right? And the question has become, okay, is Darnold's lack of performance a result of a lack of talent or a lack of talent around
Well,
him?
that's
And I don't,
I
and that's
guess.
the age question that guys like Douglas and Saleh, and I'm not enough of a talent evaluator
I
to
know
make
that.
that
That's why
call.
I said
Uh,
whatever they do, I trust
yeah,
because
I mean,
they're
again,
the ones that we have to trust.
you see flashes, right? And it lets you to believe that, oh, wait, he could be the guy. And just that quickly, those flashes go
I
away, and you're
know.
like, okay, then he's not the guy, right? And that's the problem. It's that lack of consistency, even a semblance of consistency, that makes you sort of scratch your head and go, really not quite sure if this guy, right? We talked a couple of years ago when before he had mono 2 years ago, we really thought Darnold was on the ascension. We thought he was going to be the guy, and he looked horrible week one, and then we realized, okay, he was sick. In a game they could have won, they didn't, and then he got sick with the mono and got hurt again. And then this year, same thing. Didn't have a great year. He had snippets periodically, and they stunk. And then all of a sudden, he comes back at the end of the year, was relatively decent, and cost him the shot at Trevor Lawrence by winning 2 games while he was a quarterback.
Beating an what were the Rams at that point in time?
They weren't undefeated, but they were obviously became a playoff team. Although you see what happened with Jared Goff, so
Yeah, they were on a run or something, weren't they
they
at the
were they won
time?
like 3-4 in a row, I think.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
they were a pretty hot team. So look, I mean, I'd probably lean towards Zach Wilson because, I mean, to tell you the truth, when I look at Zach Wilson, I see Baker Mayfield. That's what I see. I don't know if I
Do you
see
believe
much
in
more
Baker
than that.
Mayfield though?
What's
But do you
that?
believe in Baker Mayfield? Do you
That's
believe in
the
Baker
thing.
Mayfield as a number one?
Again, yeah, I think Zach Wilson. And when I'm saying Baker Mayfield, but again, that all depends on what Baker Mayfield's ceiling is. I don't know what it is. It could still be very high. Um, I
The
also get the feeling that Zach Wilson would handle himself better in New York. I think that's the problem that I've had with Darnold all along. I don't think he handles himself very well here. He's just too vanilla. He seems to be a little bit. He gets, he takes, I don't know. He doesn't have a thick kind of, he can't deflect very well when it comes to. I'm not saying just criticism, but when things aren't going well, I just don't think he handles it well. And this is not the market to be that kind of guy. And I just don't think he fits New York. And
I mean, that's part of the reason why we wanted Mayfield, right? Mayfield had the moxie as a quarterback,
which
right?
Zach Wilson has.
He's got the quarterback mentality, which at times hurts him based upon the way he acts and based upon the comments he makes. But when you're leading a huddle and you want a guy to be the guy that everybody looks at, Mayfield has that kind of moxie that makes everybody pay attention. Now, granted, he also got helped by a good offensive line. He got helped by the combination of Chubb and Hunt at running back.
Sure.
He also had some talented wide receivers with Landry and Beckham when he was healthy, and Higgins wasn't bad, and Njoku was a decent tight end. So he definitely had more talent. Look, Darnold did not have a ton of talent around him this year, but he also didn't make the talent around him better.
No. And look, the only reason why I think Darnold, and again, it's just very small, that I think he's going to stay is just because of the fact that I believe that the Jets could get some really good trade options with that second pick. And they can move down 3 or 4 spots or 5 or 6 spots, and they can get some really good additional draft picks and really, reload the roster with Sam Darnold and say, okay, we're going to give it one more year with a loaded roster and loaded draft picks, and we'll see where that takes us. I just think, knowing Douglas and his draft philosophy, but again, I personally, I want to see Zach Wilson. So.
Okay. I mean, look, I think very much they have not made a decision yet, right? It's pretty evident they have not made a decision yet. Yeah.
So we'll see. Again, that's why I said whatever they do, they make a trade for Watson, they draft Zach Wilson, they decide to hold on to Sam Darnold. I'm going to trust that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are going to do the right job. You mentioned the offensive line. They haven't done anything. So that's where, and we know that, I mean, I'm even surprised that they haven't really moved yet with Fant or Van Routen when it comes to freeing up some cap space. So they can still do that.
They may be waiting.
Maybe they're waiting to make sure that they can sign someone.
Yep. I think that's probably more likely occurrence, right? You until they can sign somebody. I mean, you could also, bolster it in the draft and then make the moves afterwards as well to kind of free up some cap room if they have to.
And again, look, I still don't think it was a bad line when they were all healthy and together. And it's not the worst thing in the world to add another young player in the draft and have continuity with a much better supporting cast. So I just don't think it's that bad of an offensive line if you do that. The Jets definitely have to look at running back, and it's I'm actually pretty excited about the prospects of with that second first round draft pick of getting one of those top 2 running backs.
Etienne is probably the name you've seen a lot, and that's what I've seen also out of Clemson. He's the guy that I've seen a lot. I'm a little surprised that Jamal Williams signed for pretty minimal money, and he's done a decent job in Green Bay. I thought they might make a run out of him as a backup. He would have been a little bit of a nice addition, guy who's got experience catching the ball at good hands, can run the ball a little bit. Not necessarily a number one, but a guy you can use as somebody to alternate in periodically.
Yeah, so I expect running back draft. We'll see what happens with the offensive line because I don't really think. I mean, do you see any other linemen out there that are available in free agency that that guy would definitely be an improvement over this guy?
I mean, Lindsey, obviously, and Thuney were the 2 guys I think that were the declared number 1 and 2 in the market, and there's a substantive drop from there. I think there's guys to add, but I don't think any of them are difference makers that you automatically pencil in and say, he's a starter and my line has gotten substantially better. I mean, I got to go back into the list, and maybe there's a handful of them are guys who can rotate in its spots. I mean, I think there's another center that signed that maybe they could have added that would have been able to move, the current center to guard or maybe tackle. But there's nobody that I looked at other than those 2 guys. Look, Lindsey, 5 years, $62.5 million. I can understand to a certain extent why Douglas didn't get him. And Thuney, look, it's only 32.5 guaranteed, but he wanted to go somewhere, and clearly they made a pitch to him. balking for Patrick Mahomes is not the worst thing in the world.
No. As far as wide receiver, so now there's again Corey Davis and Mims on the outside and Crowder in the slot. They re-signed Vincent Smith, which we've talked about.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
we both like Smith. He's got some good potential as a developmental receiver. You know, your last receiver on the roster. You still, of course, can have Berrios backing up Crowder. That basically leaves one more guy. And look, I like some of the depth that they have. Cager, you know, that's probably the top guy as far as, you know, but overall, you really should think of adding one more impact type receiver in the first few rounds, somebody on the outside. And you just got to give yourself a little bit more depth. I think if you do that, you have Davis, Mims, you add another outside guy in the first few rounds, and you have Berrios, Crowder, and Smith, and I think you have a pretty good wide receiver core.
Yeah, and you could also think about slot receiver because Crowder's only got one more year on his deal.
Well, you got Berrios, so
yeah, but doesn't move the needle
slot,
a ton for me. One,
you know,
right? But again, slot receiver is pretty important as we've seen the last couple of years. Especially Crowder was kind of the safety net at times, right? And the key, clearly, hopefully, with the gains we finally saw by Herndon the last 3-4 weeks of the year, you have to hope they carry forward. But you do need to add. We thought tight end was a position of strength last year. It turned out to be a position of weakness. So that may be another area where they focus on a little bit. But in the offensive linemen, they definitely need another cornerback, right? We talked about that. They lost Brian Poole unless they decide to bring him back to play slot, which they haven't done yet. They got him late last year. Maybe they bring him back to play slot, and he actually didn't have a bad year last year.
Yeah, I'm surprised again. Nobody has signed him yet either. And I'm kind of surprised that the Jets haven't re-signed him. I don't know why. We both believe that he deserves a multi-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. But again, it's a new staff. So we'll find out. Robert Saleh, I'm sure, has something in mind. But yeah, that's definitely the to me, that's the glare. Again, offensive line, I still think that you can excuse what's going on. As I mentioned, at least there's continuity and add some players in the drafts. But the secondary, the corners, that's the glaring weakness right now.
Agreed. Yeah. Absolutely. That's why the longer Sherman is out there, the more likely I think he ends up in New York, even though supposedly negotiations and everything's going slow. He just, on the face of it, makes too much sense given what he brings to the table. A little bit of attitude, good guy for Mims to learn from, can line up opposite him, can teach guys the system a little bit. Just on the face of it, just makes too much sense for them not to make at least a run at him.
And I'm glad that they haven't first day out, we're signing Richard Sherman, we're going to overpay for him. No. I mean, I'm sure Richard Sherman thinks that Robert Saleh wants me. I'm going to milk them for as much as I can. No, I mean, if you're going to do that, then we'll look elsewhere. Because you're not going to overpay for a guy that is getting older, broke down last year. So hopefully they'll come to terms in a deal that makes sense for both parties. Look, finally, though, once they made the deal for Lawson, it said the Jets are going back to a 4-3. That's exactly what that said. And that's why the C.J. Mosley rumors to me are real. Because he's a 3-4 linebacker. That doesn't mean he can't play anywhere. He's a great player. Great players can play anywhere. But I wonder, and I don't think the Jarrad Davis deal does anything. Because even though he's a middle linebacker, everybody knows it's already out there. Once he moved to outside last year, he was a better player. He was able to utilize his speed. He's a pretty good edge rusher. He's actually pretty good in coverage as well. So I don't think that impacts at all. I think he's definitely the outside linebacker for this 4-3 defense. So Davis outside and Mosley inside. That's excellent. But I can see if they get an offer for C.J. Mosley, I can actually see that happening as well. But I hope not. C.J. Mosley is a great player.
Who are you replacing him with also?
Exactly. It's not going to be Neville Hewitt.
No.
But the defensive line now, Quinnen Williams, Foloronzo Fudokasi, and Carl Lawson. That's a really good starting point with those three guys.
Yep, absolutely. Much better than we've had.
Yeah, because now
And
I
by
was
the
going
way,
to say
very
now
good for.
Futakasi and Quinn Williams, they can play together on the inside, but
Yep.
that means that the Jets still have to go out there and get themselves another outside
Yep.
defensive end.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
And by the way, good for Leonard Williams, who got paid, who deserved it based on his play last year.
Yeah. You see, how many times do we talk about in sports? Sometimes a guy needs a change of scenery. And I'm not
Yep.
talking about regional. I'm talking because
Right.
that didn't matter. I'm talking about
Right.
scheme, coaching staff, new eyes, fresh start. So good for him because he got ripped apart. The Jet
Yep.
fans just they were a little hard on him and it wasn't right. And remember we were
Yep.
talking about all those hidden things that were the coaching staff used to always talk about. Yeah, but he's doing this. You're not seeing what he's doing. He's really a good player. I know the sack numbers aren't there, but he's really good at doing things that you just don't see. Well, they were right.
Yep. Same thing we said about Quinn Williams his rookie year, right? Same things. Everybody's saying, "Oh, we don't see. Well, we got to see a little bit, right? Everybody looks at the numbers on the sack category, but the quarterback pressures, which is why Lawson is so good. Also, while his sack number was good, the pressure number was even better.
And keep in mind too that the team still, if you take a look at it, Zuniga was a third-round draft pick, and as a third-round draft pick, you are expected in the second year to contribute.
Yep, absolutely.
So that is somebody to keep an eye on as well because he didn't really do much for the team last year. Look, between now and the next time we talk, which is probably going to be sometime next week, I think there's going to be a lot more movement. This is where I think Joe Douglas is going to do most of his shopping.
Yeah, well, one guy who's out there, we haven't talked, Kenny Galloway's out there. I don't think they're going that direction, but he is out there still.
Giants will probably get him.
Giants are looking for him, yep.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, right now it looks like, again, but so far you're pretty happy with what the Jets have been doing.
I give him probably about an A- B+ so far. I mean, granted, somewhere in that range. I mean, look, the offensive line was a need. There was two guys out there. They missed on the two.
Sure.
Now they need to go back and really evaluate, okay, of the other guys that are out there, which one fills a need and which one can potentially we think I'd rather sign a younger guy, right? Trent Williams would have been lovely, but Williams signed for a lot of money, right? I would have loved Alex Mack. Alex Mack would have been a nice ad because you would have put him
those
at
guys
center.
are just going to go to championship caliber teams.
Yep. Well, I don't know. San Francisco championship caliber team. Mack went to San Francisco.
He's got a connection with Shanahan.
He went because of Shanahan. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right. But Mack would have been a nice ad because we talked about him a couple of years ago when we wanted Mack and they didn't get him. So he would have been a nice ad also. So, I mean, the available, there is guys out there. I mean, the hope is that you don't do the same thing you did last year where you bring on a bunch of guys just because you have room and none of them pan out particularly well.
No, those days are over. This is still all of a sudden a team now that went from, I know it's not a big leap, but they went from the third most cap space and a couple of days, they're first. So now Joe Douglas has still got all the money. He's got an opportunity to spread it around because there's a lot still that he can add to the roster. Just like you were mentioning with this Justin Hardy special teamer. Statistically speaking, you were looking at one of the better special teamers in the league last year. So he's just not a special teamer. He was one of the better special teamers out there, probably the top free agent special teamer. So it's nice these are the little kind of deals that the team has to make. That's why I think the team is going to make a lot of those types of deals. There aren't going to be the marquee, maybe Richard Sherman, of course, that's different. But besides that, I think a lot of the players they're going to bring in over the next week are not going to be household names. We're going to trust that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are going to get the right guys, though.
There's still material holes on this lineup that has to be filled, right? And even in free agency, may not fill it, right? So we'll have a better sense, obviously, post free agency and post draft, kind of what kind of team we're looking at. And we also realize that it's not a 1 year rebuilding, right?
No.
It's a multi-year rebuilding. So the goal is to get better this year, or hopefully markedly better, and then next year is when you hopefully take that big leap forward, especially if you have the cap room to add in the pieces that you need to take that next step. But clearly starts with the guy under center.
All right. Well, then we'll end the show with this final question and answer on your end, which you have failed to answer, because I did. Do you want Sam Darnold and hold on to that draft capital, or is it time to say goodbye to Sam Darnold and draft Zach Wilson?
I think they're going Zach Wilson. If you ask
what
me,
do you want?
What do I want?
What do you favor? I favor Zach Wilson. What do you favor?
I want Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson. That's what I favor, but that's not happening.
Deshaun Watson.
I would love to see Darnold get another year. I don't. My opinion is they're not going to go that direction. They're going to go. They're going to go and draft a quarterback at number 2.
And what do you want?
I would like to see. I said I'd like to see Darnold get another year.
Oh, you
I
want
don't
Darnold?
think they're
Okay, so
going
you're
to.
going to go with Sam Darnold.
I don't think they're going to go in that direction, and I understand why. That's probably not the right move to do it. I do think. If you talk about change of scenery, he needs to change of scenery. Granted, it's changed, right? So, look, the problem is none of us like Gaze. He's lost 2 years of development under Gaze, in our opinion. All of it is not Gaze's fault, right? A lot of it has to be put on Darnold and getting sick in health matters. Now, maybe LaFleur coming in
It's a dumbed
is
down
the
offense.
elixir that he needs. And it's up to, look, LaFleur, the quarterback coach, really have to look and say, okay, do we see there's enough raw material that we can work with here that the system maximizes his talent? And again, if you're going to do that, if you're only signing him for 1 year, you're going to have to draft somebody anyway, right? Even if you extend the 5th-year option. Or do we say, look, we're just going to cut bait now, get what we can get, and we're going to bring in a guy who we think is the future quarterback for the New York Jets down the road?
Well, see, that's the thing is I think it's going to be what do they really believe that Zach Wilson is just going to end up being a better player?
That's right.
Because Sam Darnold has talent. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't think it's I don't think it's GM speak when he talks highly at times about Sam Darnold, because he's right. There's a lot there, just like you said before. There's a lot to like about Sam Darnold's talent. You see it there, and you say to yourself, well, what could happen if we give him a good supporting cast? And what happens if we trade him to a team with a good supporting cast and he becomes a really good player? So it's a tough decision to make. I completely get that. The final reason that I prefer Wilson over Darnold, though, is just attitude. I just think Wilson will handle the New York media and the New York lifestyle better than Sam Darnold.
Well, we shall see. Another
We shall
month
see.
or so? What, another month or so to the draft?
Yeah, about 5 more weeks.
Huh?
5 more weeks.
5 more weeks. Well, better
It'll
make
get here quick.
Again,
can't wait.
It'll get here very quick.
Yeah,
very quick.
It's going to be a lot of fun. This is the time of year that's great for Jet fans, unfortunately. But let's hope this is the last, because as we said a few months ago, this was going to be the last big offseason. I mean, look, next season offseason could be big again, because we're going to have 2 more first-round draft picks. We could end up, if Sam Darnold stays here and stinks, we could end up with a 5-win team and a top 10 pick. But let's just hope that's not the case. Let's hope this is it.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully so. Let's hope this is it.
Hopefully this is the last year we have to talk about this.
This is it. All right. Sounds good, Jan. So we'll talk again next week, as long as there's a lot of action to talk about. And I think there will be. I think, and we may even see a trade.
We're stepping into really phase 2 of free agency now.
Yep. All right. Sounds good, Jan. Appreciate it. Don't forget, everybody, if you like the video, would like to see more, please like the video. You can subscribe to the channel. This way, anytime our videos pop up on your YouTube page, front and center. And we will be back again at some point, probably next week, to talk more about the Jets. And, of course, we're also going to be getting ready for the draft with the Ourlads Draft Guide. So you can order that at ourlads.com. I will be writing my report in the Ourlads Draft Guide to preview the Jets draft. So check that out. Jan, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.